Okay.
I have to open my camera also. Yeah, Nikhil also join.
So, okay. Hi guys, we have few more attendees to join. So we will be starting this webinar soon. Just give us some 4 minutes of time. So we will start the webinar by 3:05. So just give 3 minutes of time. So we will start soon. Hello everyone, we are good to go now. So we have a good number of attendees now. So a very good afternoon to all of you. So thanks for joining this Windows webinar series. My name is Jayashree and I work as a cloud consultant at E2E Networks. So under this webinar series, our today's topic is best practices for running Microsoft SQL Server. With us today, Mr. Jasmeet S. Bajaj and Nikhil is there as a speaker. So he is Jasmeet is a cloud specialist and founder of Nuix Technologies. A quick update on the agenda is Jasmeet will take us through a presentation. Then we will have a Q&A round after the presentation where you can drop your questions and Jasmeet will address your queries. So let us start the presentation without further delay. So over to you, Jasmeet.
Hi, I'm audible.
Yes, Jasmeet, you're audible.
And my screen.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Hi, everybody. Their audience is closed, I supposed to be. Participant audio is closed.
No, I think everything is fine.
Okay, shall I continue? Okay, I'll explain. I'm Jasmeet. We are into cloud solutions and we're giving a solutions, managed services to the various clients, to the corporates on Linux and on Windows. So today I'll cover up basic of SQL database, how we maintain an SQL and the best practice we have to maintain on Windows servers so that the client gets a better performance regarding to SQL concerns on that. So I'll just continue with that. If I move my slides. So the SQL started up from 2008, and now we have different versions: 2012, 14, 16, and 17. We have it. So around the years, Microsoft has improved a lot of things on the partitions, on SSD optimizations, and on RAM optimizations to get the competitive performance as compared with the Oracles and other DBs. So SQL, as in components, they have made with the oracles, and we have to maintain a best practices for to maintain a default. We have to maintain the not just so basic default setups, but we have to manage the optimizations and to care about the backup and proper setup of RAMs and hard disk as well. So we're covering all the points now. So the benefits of the best practice we can cover up today's for the security is concerned, the server performance, how we maintain optimization of server performance, server availability, and scalability on that. So these are the how to implement. We have to consider these 10 points. The hardware considerations, what type of hardware we have to utilize, installation, what important points we have to consider on at the time of installation, the security part. DR would be a backup. How are we maintaining the backup of our SQLs? The high availability is that if we're keeping a two servers live, so how our SQL will be communicate, how the primary and secondary will be on a high availability setup on that. The maintenance part, the reporting part on there, and how we maintaining with the alerts and setup, and how we upgrades our SQL databases with the different versions. And the documentation part is more important than that. So the hardware is concerned, the other setup, it should be the factors we have to consider about the SQL. It should be 64-bit hardware should be there with a Windows platform with an SQL server. And we have to see that the turnout should be log pages in memory. That is a very important point because by default it should not be there. So to get a better practice on that, we should be on a log pages in memory, and the dynamic memory should be more than 2008. That you have to consider about these points. I request the participant please note down the points for these. And as concerned the memory is concerned, the SQL server should be on a cache pages in the RAM, so the more RAM can be thrown at the SQL server instance. Usually it should be better performance. And depends on the server licensing, and depending upon the additions, we have to maintain the RAM cache pages. So type of the number of users, how many we have, if the amount of the users that you can will access and pulling the data from the cubes is 15 or less, then you should need to take an extra memory per user into consideration. When more than 50 concurrent users are likely to be using in the cubes, you should consider adding about 1 or 2 GB of RAM for every 5 additional users. So this is a normal practice, we are maintaining it. And for an execution packages, it is found by doubling their amount of RAM with 16 GB to 32 GB. we can cut down the runtime of a execution package from 4 hours to complete down to 2 hours. So we have to maintain the execution packages as well. The in sizing of databases, a database that is with 50 GB or lesser, let's say, so 16 GB of RAM is probably is okay. So if your DB is what 50 GB, so you have to consider about 16 GB is fine. And if it's okay, you are updating the write with the 10 concurrent users. And OS is keep the reserve at least for 2 GB of RAM for the OS, plus additional 1 GB to each 4 GB between the 4 to 16 GB, and another 1 GB for every 8 GB installed every above 16 GB on that. So OS, you should keep about 2 GB as by default for the OS level, and 1 GB for additional with the 1 users on concurrent level. And on the storage part, on drive 1, we can keep the sourcing database into 2. So, and on drive 2, we can put up a temporary DB database file, which should be variable, but generally with 100 GB or lesser than that. On a drive 3, we can plan it out to be standard C drive that to hold the OS program files, and these are the basic programs we can install on that on the drive C. On the network part, we have to take care of IO subsystems, planning requirements. We have to black and white on that. Designing of redundancy planning on and performance with the partition alignment on that. So the basic design, we can keep it on this, on the SQL binaries and the DBS on that. So if we come on installation and configuration, the fact we can do an SQL Server setup is just not by clicking, but you have to see the setting of storage, what we are doing it. The storage is one of the key components that will affect the database of performance on production servers. Besides provisioning of a disk space, the person in charge of installing SQL Server must select how many drives to use according to the project's budget. According to the number of disks available, they must decide the proper configuration rates for those disks. Thereafter, formatting of this is must, and proper all allocation size, depending on if the disk is used for data files or log files should be there. And when the disks are properly formatted, the person that installed SQL Server must run some tests in order to know the disk response times. And one way to do is by using the SQL IO tool to run on that. The final step regarding the storage configuration is to prevent the MDF files from being zeroed out when they are grown, and which allows MDF files to be created quickly, speed up create database, alter databases, restore databases, and auto growth. So default instance or name instance, this may be a travel, but it's not, especially on system admins who don't have an depth knowledge on SQL servers, but they are applications that run on SQL servers that need to be on the default instance. So the connections to the database uses only the machine name. I have seen the servers with an already installed versions of SQL servers because of monitoring tool that uses SQL Server Express on that. On the other hand, there were the applications that required SQL servers. Instance have to be a specific name, so that if the person in charge of installation just press the next button on the DBA will be have the whole installation again on that. So be careful on that. On SQL feature selections are in the options, but people not using it. That happens even when the SQL Server specialist is one who has installed the instance. The problem with the installation features that won't use reliance on the facts that most of the features are services that automatically start and use the system resources. When we are installing on the production server, we should install only on the features you will use. That is just in the case. So there's a screen, I'll just share on that. So these are feature selections. We have to select carefully on that. On the service accounts, when someone installs the SQL servers with the default setup, it will install the default service accounts only. But if the SQL server is installed with the local service accounts, there's a chance that SQL Server doesn't recognize the domain accounts as trusted domain accounts, because SQL Server will not be able to register as an SPN in that account in the domain. So we have to care on that. On the other hand, this is a serious problem on this example. If XCCMD shell file is enabled, a malicious user can shut down all the computers of the entire organization. The authentication mode, we have to careful on this point as well. SQL Server provides both the authentication features like Windows authentication and the login base and database instant directly with the authorized Windows login and a mixed mode. That includes the possibility to use the SQL Server logins. By default, SQL Servers uses Windows authentication mode, but to use the security mode, for instance, usually must be a part of a domain. Sometimes that happens when we select the domain account as a service account, which I have discussed above. It's not be a default option, but if the person in charge of installing SQL Server decide to use a mixed mode, he should be aware of security issues that are exposed on that. Selection of a data directories, that's again an important point. This is one of the steps that we should make all the previous steps correctly. Make all those steps worthless. We don't have done a great job on selecting a proper storage and cluster size. But if we choose a default options, when we are asked to do for the directories to be used as data files, log files and backups, all the work has to be done in vain then. So not be worth on that. And the configuring of a DB would be those reasons we should must set up a storage properly before installing SQL Server is that data files and log files need to be treated differently. It's a bad practice to use the same drive to store both data and the log files. On configuring TempDB, selecting the right location for TempDB is crucial for SQL Server installation. Also, there are the best practice regarding TempDB configuration, which we discuss later on that point. So this is the setup file of database engine configuration file. Choosing the proper co-locate. As I told you that a wrong selection of a data directories is one of the reasons that will make a whole installation failure. And this is to be the other. Correlation in SQL servers provide sorting rules, cases, and assign sensitivity properties. And if you the organization is not deploying a production server for a few new applications, the person in charge for the installation must know what co-location is to be used in application. Otherwise, the application will not run properly or may not run at all. Let me come on to the security part. Although security servers is designed to be a secure database platform, using the default settings, we leave the security gaps in the system itself. Moreover, SQL Server has many security features that we should configure individually to improve the security. So start adding from its home where it is resides. So hardware, the hardening the Windows servers where SQL servers operates. The operating system should be secure to reduce the vulnerability of the SQL server. Otherwise, attackers can gain access of OS and copy the data files to their own server, where they can break passwords or encrypt at their leisures. Few basic items like installing all service packs and critical fixes for Windows and in the VMware where it's applicable, configuring a firewall, limiting the number of employees who use the Windows administrator access on the SQL server, secure and encrypted remote access, restricting unnecessary services we have to do, and implementing active logins on the base. So then again, hardening, how are we doing it? So installation of only SQL database components. So that's where again an important point you have to consider. As we discussed earlier in the installation part, the installation has to be restricted to just the components needed for our database to perform in the task. This way we have reduced the attack surface area by eliminating the components that could have a security vulnerabilities and also minimize the resource utilization by the database and simplify administrator by eliminating services and components needed to be managed on that. Limit the permissions of a service accounts according to the principle of least privilege. Uh, Principle of least privilege, which states that each account should have a minimum permissions and system rights it needs to be function. Planning for the user accounts creation and the right assignment should be according to the principle itself. The best practice is to assign each service a separate account that is a member of relevant security group. That's why even if the account for the one service is to be compromised or damaged, other service will still have to operate normally. Depending on the usage and available environment, we have two different types of accounts for SQL services. This includes Active Directory managed services account, domain user accounts, local user accounts, local system account, network service account, and so on. So SQL browser services are another services. As we know, the basic purpose of the SQL browser service is to provide the instance and port information to the incoming connection request. It has a different impact on different situations. The way we use SQL Server service affect the use access to your SQL Server instance. Hence, the security we install in all the instance on that. If we have to just install a default instance installed, the default port on our machine, then SQL Server browser may be stopped to avoid overhead on this. It would be a secure configuration compared to have a SQL Server browser service running and service the incoming connection request with the instance and port information. You have no problem in using the full customized connection strings like IP plus name and port. Then you can stop the browser service permanently and access the instance through a fully qualified connection string on that. Hence, it actually calls for administrator and management to consider whether the benefit of its use of overweight the potential negative consequences as a part of best practice, as we can run a SQL Server browser service with a minimum privilege account on that. So these we already recommended, and we have to keep the practice for a strong password for data administrators. This is an important point. For even there can't be any excuse for having an insecure password for SQL Server. The account must be unbreakable to the people who use automatic scripts to be attacked on that. And installation of SQL Server updates permanently. As we know, the hackers are constantly discovering vulnerabilities and exploit the Microsoft releases. So we see the Microsoft every time releasing a new patches every time to fix it them. So simplest ways to secure the server is to keep it on update every time manually and keep it on updates. So it is very essential that the SQL Server instance is to update by installing the latest server pack and critical community patches on that. However, prior to applying any patch or service pack, we need to verify that it is not be create any issues for our current SQL setup and should apply only after testing only. Use appropriate authentication options. The SQL Server offers several authentication options like Windows authentication, SQL, and a mixed mode option on that. The best practice is Windows authentication to be connected with the SQL Server because it's a leverage to an Active Directory account, group or password policies it maintains. So if we have to use SQL Server authentication mode connected to SQL Server, do not use an SA account. Instead, disable that account because it's the first account attackers will try to compromise on the brute force attack. So be careful on that, not to use an SA account on that. So this is a backup strategy. We have to keep it in mind. Depending on company to company policies, we have to keep it the major points. The frequency what we have to maintain that data changes. The online transaction processing are there. The frequency of the schema changes, we have to keep it on the mind. Frequency of change of database configurations, data loading patterns, nature of data itself, and how often you restore our data. So backup and restores has to be keep it on the mind. So policies we have to maintain with that and keep it on mind. So this is a best practice for a full backup of all the system and users production database, plus a log backups. That's more important. Bulk or full recovery modes must be backup on transaction logs. Initial verification with the restore with verify only. Backup option with a full differential or file group. Retention policies, we have to mention on this. Periodically test backups to see if they can be restored. So drill policies should be there on the offline to check that our backup is restored properly or not. Store backup securely and offsite on not on the same disk array or a SAN. It should be a separate disk arrays. Use different backups. Backup compression should be must with encryption on that. And we have test process to ensure that we have a valid backups on that. And get your different geographical location. It's better practice to keep it a different the backups are not on the same location or same office. It should be in a different cloud or different data centers. This is protecting against the SQL injection. It's a very common things. We are getting the SQL injection attacks are there, and the people not taking care of this people. So we know the SQL injections are the injection techniques that the hackers use to insert the malicious SQL statements on there. So we execute on your SQL database. This technique is made possible mainly because of improper coding of vulnerable web applications. We have made it. So the main prevention method is using prepared statements, using store procedures, validate user inputs, limiting privileges. We already discussed above on this. Use encryption wisely, we say, because encryption allows if it sometimes leaks the data. So still we have encrypted keys, so nobody can access on the data itself. So it should be a transparent data encryption, always encrypted, and column level encryption should be there. So finally, it's a documentation part. We have to take care of that. How many of us maintain documents? Normally we don't maintain that. We just do the installation and finish it up. But let's say in our organization, the people documents non-documented paper. If anybody else has to access or see the setup, nobody can help you on that. So we requested all the keep in documentation on this to maintain the documents, how we made the installation and configuration, what parameters we defined on this, what application we made up on set up on the SQL servers, our DR and the backup plan we done it, and anytime changes we have made it on the instance on any reasons. So be sure on that the documentation should be easily available to everyone in your organization who needs to access onto it. So conclusion is that every step counts. Many of us are familiar with the sum case. So practice makes a process perfect. So what is my that people, I understand that for this webinar, all people have got the idea how to install, where to install, what type of configuration we have to maintain on SQL platforms. Regarding hardware is concerned, the OS is concerned, the RAM we have to maintain, cache memory we have to see consider on this, the disk arrays, and the practice on the security itself. Thanks, folks. This is a short presentation from my side. Over to
Yeah, Jasmeet, actually, you can see few of the questions came from the crowd.
Okay, the audience. Okay.
Please see and please answer those questions and help them out.
This is by taking care of my technical team. Is here. Nikhil, you are there? Nikhil?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So you get the question answer. You getting the view on this?
Yeah, the first question is can we block the direct SQL connection from remote network? If yes, then how?
All right. So it actually depends upon the network upon which you need to block the direct SQL connection from the remote side. So here, I would talk about the general infrastructure where we need to block the malicious connections to our SQL server. So there are many ways in which we can block these kind of access to our SQL server. For example, blocking the ports, blocking the default ports, as in we can change the default port number to any XYZ, any number. Second, we can encrypt the remote connection to whatever the highest level we can. Thirdly, we can secure our infrastructure accordingly to the available resources.
Okay. So I hope he got the answer. So there is one more question, Nikhil. How to automate the
Yeah.
backup
Yeah.
process?
So exact answer, I would say, we would be able to answer the exact, the exact query by looking upon the exact infrastructure only. Right now, I can just answer, the general infrastructure.
Okay.
All right. So
moving
on to
how to automate that. There are different tools are there available in the market like Veeam, Acronix, Commvault. So you put up a schedule backup on there. So they take it a live backup schedule on live SQL database. So you can keep it backup onto another premises or another geographical location or into a third-party clouds. So that's we automated the back schedules. Make it up when they see that when the lower request or lower database creation. So you make it up a schedule on an incremental or differential backup on that.
Okay. Okay. So there is one more question. Since you suggested, how can we take the backup on different cloud?
A different cloud. See the practice, what the even for as auditor as concerns or auditing purpose, we don't keep the data on the same premises. It's not recommended on the same disk as I already mentioned in my slide as well. And other way you can use third-party tools like Veeam or Acronix. They are giving you backups or CDB backups. E2 is also offering it. So it should be in a different, we said different backup. So AWS is also, so the live servers are running, let's say the live server is running on E2 servers. So put up a tools and keep the backup on the AWS in case of instance, any failure. So you can retrieve the data from the AWS platform as backup is concerned, or a third party Google space, you can take it up. The users can take it up. So there are different tools and different storage available in the market. But don't go for the free ones like Google Drive and all. Never be go that. That won't perform.
Okay. So one question from Pankaj. So I wish to know if my server has 16 GB RAM and what is the best size to set max memory to SQL Server?
Nikhil, you can answer
all
this.
right. Yes, sir. So by default, this limit is set to 2 TB of RAM. That is what SQL Server standard has set up from the backend. But yes, we can adjust it according to our need. So it's just there's a particular settings in SQL Management Studio where we can set this.
Okay. So let us wait for some more time. Let's see if some more questions comes.
Another question is there. Others are there. How to change the SQL port?
Yes. Some more. How to change SQL port? Yeah.
All right, so that is a quite of bit technical, and it requires, I can explain the steps, but that would be quite of technical thing. That can be simply done from the configuration manager. We need to just select from the list of the instance which we want to configure. The instance where we want it to listen. So to change the port, we just need to right click on the TCP IP protocol and select properties, and on the IP address, we can do that.
Okay. So Jasmeet, can you see there is like Pankaj again replied?
Pankaj is here. Nikhil, He says ki how to need the more maximum size on this. He says
Yeah.
Pankaj ji has request for this.
All right. So I think that is 4 TB. I actually need to confirm on that. I haven't set the maximum size, but yes.
Pankaj ji, can you
What
share
I
your number? Pankaj ji, can you share your number so that we can take it up offline and we can give you a proper query on this?
exactly we can.
Sure. Just me. Yeah, we have his details, so we can have an offline discussion.
Any other queries are there from other people from other
Yes,
team?
there is one more, like, as a good performance, which SQL version you recommend? Express, Web, and Standard.
So that depends upon okay, for best performance. See, it's not. It depends upon the requirement, the DB size, what query you want to run, what applications you want to run, what features you want. So Express is coming free with us. The Microsoft giving you free Express because with the 10 GB. So if your data size is more than 10 GB, you have to move to a web edition or a standard editions. So there are different comparisons between the Express, web, and standard editions. So standard editions, I have a different can handle more of TB of RAM, CPUs as compared to web editions. So it depends entirely on the company's requirement. So if the customer, if I put up my email, I can share it, the slide. I have to see that slide is with me or not. It is a comparison between where it is required, uh, Express or web edition on this. So there's a limitation in Express and some limitation on web as well. But most of the requirements are fulfilled in web editions.
Okay. So there is one more question. Any tool you suggest to back up our DBs directly to S3?
I have used MSP 360, which was the Cloudberry earlier, and we use it Acronix both. Then tested also, and I'm using that tools.
Okay.
So MSP 360 you search is a very good tool, and earlier it was named as the Cloudberry Lab. So it's a very good tool and some multi-platform. So you can keep it in S3 cold and hot, and as well as you want to put up in Google also. So two platforms, two different clouds, you can keep it in that house. And the very perform is very well. The restoration is very good on this, and they do encryption and compression on a very good level.
Okay. So no more questions now, but let's wait for some more time. So if anyone is having questions, you can ask here. Yeah, got one more. Sometimes SQL queries consumes more CPU percentage. Can you let me know best practices there and how to choose the server configuration in such cases? I hope you can see this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nikhil?
Yes, sir. All right. So choosing the memory in this case is the main thing in this scenario, because the memory only can, the RAM, which can help us to counter this issue. For example, as Jasmeet sir said in this PPT, the number of users is the first criteria, and then execution packages, as you asked. So it is found that the doubling the amount of RAM even from 16 to 32 or x to 2x can even cut the runtime of an execution package to x to x by 2. So I hope you are getting my point. It directly depends upon the RAM.
RAM configuration is must to conquer the CPU percentage of usage.
Exactly.
So people are putting up normal defaulted installation. If in my slide also I mentioned up the normal system admin, what he do the next. He putting up a installation in SQL without seeing what are the features we have to enable or disable. So sometimes other application, other features also enabled in SQL, which is not required by the company or the organization.
That is
So which consume necessary of a CPU utilization of that.
exactly. So that is quite
That
a general type of thing, because we actually need to see what is happening in a specific your case.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there is one more question: how to find which SQL query is consuming maximum CPU and RAM?
Right. So there are, particular, we can set up event logs for that, transaction logs, where we can search to know, if you want to know in detail about this, we can get in contact after this session.
So they are the tools. We have some tools which
Okay.
runs, and we can see the which query is taking up maximum time.
One more question: is there any open source tool you recommend for easy backups?
Open tools gives an issue. See, open tools are good for a file level backups.
Okay.
But if you say, because the SQL is a live scenario, for that we need a VSS file, volume shadow tools, so which are not available. Even I have tried about a lot of, maybe about more than 15 experiments on the free tools, but on the time of restorations, or sometimes the tool itself consumes more of CPUs, consumes more of CPU percentage or RAM. The utilization of the server it takes up. So the paid, I've seen the lot of they it has an issue while taking a backup. It consumes very less, a very higher of a consumption of the CPU and RAM. And in the restoration also, it sometimes fails, not every time fails, but sometimes I've seen the failure of the free tools available online,
Okay.
because the DBA is in a live DBA. So if you want to just copy the file level backups, there are a lot of tools. You can go for the free tools. But for live backup, like an SQL, live files are there. Continue the files of an SQL is running up. For that, we need a Windows shadow files are there. So for that, paid tools are good, which I have tested up. So you can go with a Veeam. Veeam is very good. Veeam is the number one of the best tools. We use it. Acronix is taking up a very good performance. We should Cloudberry is taking up a very good performance on this.
Okay.
Commvault is here. Yeah.
Yeah. So there is one more question: how much MSP 360 costs? Any idea?
MSP 360. So they are different licensing. You can go to their website. So the managed services level, about they charge about 5,000 to 6,000 rupees in a license a year, a managed service provider license. But if you take a perpetual would be 9 to 10,000 rupees, approximate.
Okay.
It's a one-time cost.
One-time cost. Okay. So there is one more question. As you told, firewall is recommended. Will traffic via firewall secure our database 100%?
Certainly not, I would say, because we can't, that is a fact, because we can't secure anything 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So I think
practice we have to maintain that different ports. Nikhil has already explained the different ports we have to use to put up SQL injections. We have to keep it taken that encryption, the longer passwords, password policies. So these are the practice we have to maintain.
okay. So I think this question we have already taken. Any tool you suggest to back up our DBs directly to S3?
Pardon? Yeah,
This we have already taken. Any tool you suggest to back up our DPs directly to S3?
I've already told that you can use. I've already used it. This MSP 360. I've already used it. So
Okay.
that is connected directly with S3.
Huh.
And you can pre-schedule, you can make it up different schedules, what type of a backup is to take. It gives an alert of in email as well. And compression is very good. And they give you an encryption feature also. So you put up the encryption in there so that if the data transfers, so what it does, it compresses your data and then it encrypts and then it transfers to S3. So it's 100% secured when it transfers data to S3 bucket.
Okay. So there is one more question. Can we run MS SQL on Linux?
Yes, SQL Server is supported on Red Hat Linux and even on Ubuntu and SUSC. We can run Docker Engine on Linux or Docker for Windows or Mac, whatever we have. So the licenses are the same, and there are a bit of technical things as well. So if you want, we can share the document for this as well.
Okay. There is no new questions. Let us wait. Uh, any questions, guys? You can ask. Nikhil and Jasmeet is available now. Let's see if like we have any new questions. I think we don't have any questions. So anything else, Nikhil and Jasmeet, you want to like cover?
Most of the things we already covered up. Uh, I share my email ID. If somebody has a need, they can do me one-to-one, so that we can help them the query and to help them onto
Okay.
they help them to on a support level if they want.
Yes, we
So
can.
we are available. We are available for 24/7. So if any support, they can call us directly.
Yeah,
And
one more question is there. There will be any difference in security of standard and web edition? Is there any difference in the security of standard and web edition?
The security actually, differs from the infrastructure to infrastructure. So yes, certainly, depending upon the version, we do have different security measures. For example, we do have different services related to that edition, which need to get secured from another means. And with the standard edition, we do have different services. So we can talk in detail afterwards, but yes, certainly, yes, there are various differences between them.
Okay, okay. I think Krishna got the answer. There is no new questions. Yeah. So Jasmeet, you are saying something actually. Then we got the question, and I have.
I don't know, that's something because my number is there on the screen and my email ID. So somebody from the audience,
Yes.
anytime they can remember the question or some queries, they can directly connect with us. And I thank E2E also to bring us on the platform to share our knowledges and to clarify a lot of things. Audience got some of the answering of the queries and how to take care of while handling the SQL servers.
Correct. So it is our pleasure also, Jasmeet, to have you on our platform. And I really found this session very interactive. And even I can see audience has really have coordinated with us, asked a lot of questions. This is a really interactive session. So thanks a lot, Jasmeet and Nikhil, for your valuable knowledge shared with us, and also like to thank all the audience for making this webinar successful. So after this event, we will share a feedback form to all our audiences. So I'll be happy to receive the feedback from you all so that we can improve in our coming webinars. And also, I will request all the audience to share like any topic they want to cover in the coming sessions, so that like we can cover in the coming sessions. We will take those points and we will like start new webinars. So yeah, that's it from my side. So I think we can wrap up now. Thank you,
Thanks.
Nick. Thank you, Nikhil. Thanks
Thank you
all
so much,
for
everyone.
joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.